Yes, I am.
Yes, I am ready to go live, and we are live. And see, I wasn't laughing on the intro. See that? I managed to stop and get serious and do
Yay!
the intro. Hey, everybody, how are you? It is afternoon here, 3:40 on Thursday. Whether you're watching this live or on replay, I know you're going to enjoy this conversation today. This is only the second time we've talked, but I chuckled all the way through the first one and learned so much that I realized I had to completely redo some things, including apparently my hair product. So yeah, we fixed that. But I am today with Brook Sheehan, who's a doctor, entrepreneur, body whisperer, which I mentioned in this announcement. She's also a chiropractor extraordinaire at Cardiff Health and Wellness in California, which is the go-to place for entrepreneurs, high achievers, and support staff to optimize their life as it relates to their physical, spiritual, emotional, and mental well-being. And see, this is where I learned so much about chiropractors, because I never felt like somebody looked at all those pieces. But as an entrepreneur, she knows the firsthand demands of what we're going through and the toll it's going to take on all four of those areas. So she's dedicated herself to the work of supporting us, world changers, everybody in this group, become the best version of ourselves so that we can outwork and outperform everybody else out there for the long term. That's the cool thing about this group, is everybody in here is in it for the long term. We're not doing quarter over quarter performance and making short-term decisions. We're in it for the long term, and we need the same level of energy at the end of it that we had. There we go. Level of energy. Everybody,
Not energy.
we need that same level of energy that we started with. Guys, all right, y'all are going to have to wait a minute because I'm still introducing, and they're crazy because their dog walker's here. It'll stop in just a second. It's when you know you're in my group, is when that happens.
I love it.
So when Brooke is not working with patients, talking to me, or building her app company, which I definitely want to ask about, she enjoys reading, writing, and exploring new areas in her local community. Brooke, that was a long intro, but welcome. I'm so glad you're here because you are one of the coolest people I've ever met on Zoom.
Pam, I'm so glad to be connected. It's been amazing. Even just conversating with you last week, it elevated my spirit and made me just like, I was ready for more. So
awesome. Well, that's why I'm so glad you're here.
I'm really excited.
Tell me a little bit about how you ended up doing what you're doing, because I think your journey is as interesting as any I've ever heard. And of course, I have an affinity for part of it. So go ahead and tell us kind of how you got to where you are today.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to reverse the clock back a little bit. When I was 16 years old, and I shared this with you last week, but for the viewers today to get a taste of it. When I was 16 years old, I vividly remember driving in the car with my, family. I'm one of 5 kids, and we're all in the car, and I'm driving past all these buildings, and you see all these names, plastered across. So-and-so, Xerox, blah, 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 like all these big company names, and even personal names, right? You see the attorneys, the this, the that, whatever. And I remember thinking, these people, what did these people do to get into that position? Now, growing up in a really religious biblical household, the stories of Adam and Eve, and Adam ate the apple, and therefore now man has to toil the ground for the rest of his life. And,
it's going to be hard. It's going to be work.
Totally. And so growing up in a middle-class family, it was just like, that was the life. My mom commuted an hour and a half to go to work every single day. My grandparents took care of us. And it was like, we had our needs met, but we didn't like have more, or there wasn't like experiences of like going places and doing all these things. Like we did experience that, but not to the level like maybe these entrepreneurs, these business people had, right?
People with their names on the buildings.
Totally.
I'm going to go paint my name on my house tonight, by the way, just for the record, but go ahead.
I love it. So anyways, so I'm seeing these names, and I just was like, gosh, how do they do it? Well, at 18 years old, I was introduced to Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And book reading was not a new concept for me. When I was younger, I read every single book in the Babysitter's Club series, front to back. as they came out, I was like, I need the next one. I need the next one. I need the whole story. So avid reader, even back then. So someone presents this book to me and I was floored. Like, I was just like, this is the answer. This is exactly how those people did it, because they went into business for themselves. They were creating value in the marketplace, and the marketplace rewarded them financially for that, right? So,
and how old were you when you picked that up and made that connection?
18 years old. So I was at the point where I was about, like, I was a senior in high school. I was about to, make those decisions on which college do I go to and what do I study and all these things. And I was like, I'm not going to school. You know what? I'm not going to college, because I'm not going to take some random liberal arts class or some random art class of something like I'm not interested in. So I'm going to go to community college and I'm going to take accounting. And so I took accounting classes solely speaking your
solely, that works.
solely because when I have my own business, like at that time, this is my thought process at 18 years old. When I have my own business, I'm going to make sure that my accountant doesn't pull wool over my eyes, doesn't try to dupe me with, like all these like tax evasions, whatever. Like, I don't know why my
run
brain
off with your money. Yep.
But like, you hear stories of that happening so much, right? Like, I feel like, like the average business owner, the average self-employed person does not have the wherewithal or the knowledge to understand finances. And so they kind of like going in the dark, trusting a person to make sure that everything's handled, until years later, they might find out things were done inappropriately and they're screwed. They're
not to bring up one of my favorite musicians in the world, and you're probably too young for this, but Billy Joel, back in the day, had his business manager run off with everything, and he was left with virtually nothing. Like, granted, he had a career after that, but it's the same thing. And you knew enough, even at 18, that you wanted to protect yourself against that.
Yeah, which I'm like still kind of like trying to figure out where that came from, but it was there, like kind of deep down inside. And so I pursued that. And so I over the course of like 10 years, like from 18 to like 28, 30, I was working in accounting, and I was working for a lot of multi-million dollar businesses like these. So sidelining this really quick, there's a huge difference. And maybe Pam talks about this, like from a self-employed person to an actual entrepreneur. And self-employed, like, are your doctors, which I'll get into the whole chiropractic thing in a minute, but are your doctors and your attorneys that kind of, like run their office. And if they're away from the office on a 2-week vacation, there's nothing really happening, And so an entrepreneur has created business systems that if they pull themselves out of it for a moment to go on vacation or for 2 weeks to do something with the family or whatnot, that business is running still. And so I'm very driven entrepreneurially, like not necessarily wanting to own a job. Like, there's a reason why people get out of the 9 to 5, and you don't want to just kind of flip back into something and you're like, well, I was working only 8 hours a day. Now I'm working 16 and I'm
hours a day.
losing my mind. So I was working for all of these really big entrepreneurs. Like, they had the systems in place, and I was like the person right underneath them, right? So I was sending all the reports, I was doing all the accounting, I was, all the KPIs and all the spreadsheets and all of that, right? All the fun stuff. And so I really, really, really got to see them operate a really successful multi-million dollar business operation. And it gave me insight on, okay, this is how good business is done. This is how not so good business is done. Like, watching them go through their challenges, watching them go through their highs, like celebrating the wins with them, all of that kind of stuff. But here I was, a really young, I mean, age-wise, but like I was broken. Like, I struggled with so much self-doubt. I struggled with like image issues. I was bullied in school. One thing, Pam, I don't know if I mentioned to you last week when we were on this call, but I was born with cerebral palsy that affects the right side of my body.
I did not know that.
This is my right hand. It doesn't have as much like
movement.
Yeah. So So I was diagnosed at 2 years old. And so a big part of my identity growing up was, oh, you're just Brooke with CP. And it's a super mild case. Never was I in any sort of, modified PE classes. I was all in the same PE classes with kids growing up. I was in everything. Even going through chiropractic school, I had no accommodations. Everything was with everybody, right?
Okay.
Super, super mild, but I think I had this
The
super
separation
limiting.
was in your head.
Totally.
Wow.
And so I allowed my identity and my self-worth to be defined by that versus understanding, hey, I'm unique, I'm different, and I bring a lot of value to the world. And so, like, I'm in these accounting jobs with these multimillionaires, and I'm like, you know, celebrating all these things and doing all this stuff with them. But deep down inside, I was like, I can never do that. Like, I can never do that. Like, I
Wow.
want to do that and I want to have that, but I'm too scared. I'm sick to my stomach. I can't put myself out there. I'm shy. I can't speak. I don't know my words. Like all these things that
Wow.
I think that as people, we allow this self-talk to get in there and like stop us from doing things. Like,
Every single, yeah. I mean, and the term a lot of people use is imposter syndrome. I
yes.
think everybody's so familiar. I see my friend Trish on here, and she and I talk about this all the time. It's like, who am I to do such and such? Well, you're the perfect person to be doing such and such. And I know I have that same self-talk too. Who am I to pretend I know that? Oh, I'm not pretending. I know this stuff. So I know
Yes.
what you're, but so you were watching this, and in your mind, you were the sort of the perpetual number two, never
Yes.
going to be anything but the support system. So you and I have a lot more in common than we think. But
Yeah.
keep going. I don't want to interrupt, but yep.
No, totally. It's total imposter syndrome. And it's such a it's like one of those deterrents that like really stops you from like living out your full mission in life. And it's like one of those things that like I am on a mission now, like obviously my work with chiropractic and all that, but to like really help elevate people's mindset. And I love
Mhm.
this conversation that we're having about this because it's so powerful when you shift the headspace, like how much more you start to believe in yourself and have confidence and you make amazing connections like this. Like I feel like I know Pam, like I've known her for years and I just want to like run and give her a hug and like,
Aw.
like
After COVID.
yes, yes, of course. Of course. But it's like it's amazing, you know what I mean? Like from this like small little internal like quiet girl to being like now connecting with some amazing people. So that like the accounting world was what it was. I ended up in a really abusive relationship, mentally and emotionally. I was spared physically from the relationship being abused because he has already had a past record, and I think that that kind of saved me from
Mm,
the idea of getting hit because he didn't want to go back to prison. But there were a lot of emotional and mental scarring that I
okay.
had to work through and get therapy of or therapy through.
Oh, yeah.
Um, in that case, during that time, we had a child together, and it was that in that moment when I became a mom that I realized I have to change. Like I can't continue to be the person I am right now if I'm going to impact this child's life in a positive way, because she's just going to continue to follow down in my footsteps.
That
And
is so
so,
much like we talked about this, that moment that you had that clarity is such a gift to the world. Because if you hadn't, think about all the people that would have never gotten the benefit of what you're doing now. And I
that
really hope people hear this because no matter how down on yourself you are, no matter how much you think you're an imposter, no matter how much you think you need to be subject to other people, there's something in there that'll
yeah,
tell you if you listen. I love that part of your story.
thank you. Yeah, it was challenging to say the least, but we're on the other side of that. And with
Mhm.
every new level brings new challenges, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
so I I had this child, I was under chiropractic care throughout my pregnancy because in my mind, I was like, I want to make sure that I have the most beautiful birth, and because again, sidelining a second, cerebral palsy is not a genetic disorder. It's not anything like that. What
I
happens
didn't
with
know that.
Yeah. What happens with cerebral palsy actually is it happens in the birthing process. So it's not while you're getting, formed and being built in the womb.
Mhm.
It's happens as a result of coming out. So what happened was my mom was in labor for 29 hours and ended up losing oxygen, which
Oh,
made me lose oxygen. So it's brain damaged during
got
that loss
it.
of oxygen. So it's like a 5%. My case is very, very mild.
Yep.
There are people with it that are in wheelchairs. And the unfortunate part, and my heart goes out to them, I feel for them so much, is because it's not a mental disorder at all. It's physical, and it's your muscles, and
It's the
it's all
brain, but it's the nerve center for your muscles, not your thought process.
not at all. So
Got
the
it.
ones sitting in wheelchairs with like drool coming out of their mouth, it's not that they can't comprehend who Pam is and who anybody is, and they know all of these things, but the tongue
They can't
is a
communicate.
huge muscle. It's a huge muscle of the body. So if you have no control over that, you know, it's hard to speak.
So basically your body becomes a prison for you
Totally.
if you have a very serious case.
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. And so I forget where I was going with
We
that.
were talking about you preparing for birth with chiropractic help.
Oh yes. So exactly. So I was like, okay, I got to make sure that this birth experience for this child coming out, because I don't want her to have the same
Yep.
scenario happen, right? So I made sure my pelvis was aligned. I made sure all these different things, making sure I was healthy. And that's kind of what drove me to get under chiropractic
Ah,
care. Well, the mentor doc, or that chiropractor that was working with me and became my mentor, and
huh.
he spoke so much life into me. And he was like, Brooke, you need to go to chiropractic school. You need to go to chiropractic school. I was like, Dr. Matt, you're crazy. I have cerebral palsy. Like, me go to chiropractic school? You're crazy. And what happened is he had another doc in the office who was working with me one day, and he was adjusting me, and he goes to adjust my cervical spine, which they do every time. And he tells me, relax. And I look up at him and I was like, I can't relax. Remember, I have cerebral palsy. Like, again, those
All in your
words, that
head.
whole dialogue, everything. It was Brooke with cerebral palsy. It wasn't Brooke, it was Brooke with cerebral palsy. And I was like, Dr. Leo, I can't relax. I have cerebral palsy. He set my head back down, he's 6'2", looks down over me in the adjusting, like, I'm lying down on my like face up, and he looks down at me and he goes, I'm sick and tired of hearing you say that every single time I adjust you. You need to kick that so far from you. I don't want to hear it anymore. So sternly, so fatherly, like I started bawling. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Dr. Matt had employed this guy in his practice for maybe a month. Okay. I come out of the adjusting room and he sees my face, and Dr. Matt like walks me out the door. He's like, are you okay? Are you okay? Like, what's wrong? Because he was thinking, I have
Yep.
this new associate doc. Like, what
There's a
happened?
problem. Oh my God.
Wrong? Like all this thing. And I told him, I was like what Dr. Leo said. And I thought he was going to give me a hug and say, it's going to be good. Like, none of that. Puts his hand on my shoulder, super like
Stern.
strong, like, yeah, stern, looks me dead in the eye and goes, you need to go to chiropractic school, Brooke. And I was like, for the first time, he probably told me that 50 times. And for
Wow.
the first time I was like, maybe I'll consider. And I obviously, the rest is history, right? I
Yep.
did look into it. I did end up going for 3.5, 4 years I spent away from my child. I was just sharing this with Pam earlier that I'm originally from San Diego, California, and chiropractic school was up in the Bay Area. And so we spent time 8 hours apart from each other. And she was about to be 5 years old when I left. She's, almost 10 years old now. But it was the hardest decision I had to make, because I was forced with the decision of allow my ex-husband to hold me back because he's holding a noose, like a metaphoric noose around
Yeah.
my neck, to not allow me to chase my dreams and make a better life for me and my daughter. Or I go and I show her the example that you need to do what is in your heart, what your mission and your value is in the world, and go after it. and not let anybody hold you back.
We can do hard things. Wow.
Yeah. So I, would fly home once a month and I would come and see her. And then on all of our school breaks, I would be here the whole time, and she'd come up to the Bay Area for her summer vacations. And so one of her biggest memories that she still writes about in school when she's, asked for all these writing prompts is her summer spent in San Francisco. So I look at that as like such a beautiful, way of like an experience that she had that she would have never got had I
great point.
Held myself back, right?
Yep, great point.
So yeah, and so here I am, like a full-time chiropractor practicing while I was in grad school. This is where the app comes in. While I was in grad school, and mind you, I'm peeling back all these layers of crap that I've put on myself essentially all of these years. And I'm working through all the mental headspace, and, my daughter's growing up, and I'm starting this whole meditative practice, and I'm, doing all these things.
Yep.
And I one day, and I had an epiphany, woke up. So when I was down in San Diego a couple months prior, my best friend and I were, kids were sleeping, we're baking brownies in the kitchen. She wanted to give them to her landlord, just as like a thank you, because she had given her a new couch or something. And so we're doing this at like 10 o'clock, just chit-chatting, talking, and realize we don't have 2 eggs. So she grabs her phone, texts her neighbor, hey, can we borrow 2 eggs? So the lady brings them down, and okay, we make 2 eggs. So I'm in the kitchen and like up at my apartment in the Bay Area, and I'm like making a brand new recipe, a shepherd's pie. And I'm like, okay. And it calls for, cannot pronounce this word still to this day, so you guys can get a chuckle out of this. But the recipe called for Worcester sauce. Oh my. So it calls for this sauce. Can you hear me? Okay. So it calls for
I'm on mute. Sorry, because the dogs were starting to make noises. But yeah, I can't say it either. Worcestershire sauce. Yeah.
So silly. So I am like, okay, well, what do I do? So I'm super introverted. I don't know anybody in my apartment complex. So I leave to the grocery store, buy a brand new bottle of this, use it twice, and it sits in my fridge to rot the rest of the time. So fast forward like a few months later after these whole incidences, I like have this thought flash. Like I wake up in the middle of the night, and this is how these are like downloads from the universe, guys. Like these thoughts, like they will eat you alive. And so I woke up in the middle of the night with this download of, oh my God. So our grandparents grew up with this ideology of borrowing a cup of sugar from a neighbor, right? Mm-hmm. They actually connected over food. They connected over borrowing different things, but it was literally borrowing a cup of sugar. So I call my best friend, excuse me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to do this. We have to put this in app form. Like we have to create it to where people can connect over food ingredients, like via mobile phone, because I'm very passionate about like combating food waste. And she's very passionate about connecting and getting to know people. And I said, what better way of like tying the two together? So we do have an app that we developed on the iPhone platform currently at this time called Cup O Sugar. And it's
I put that in the comments.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Okay.
So anyway, so that's kind of like where my personal entrepreneurial journey started, right? And like, because again, I was helping other entrepreneurs building their businesses while being really excited for their big wins.
This was your first step out into the front lights.
Yes. And let me tell you, if any of you entrepreneurs out there, you will know when I say this, that entrepreneurship is the greatest personal development strategy that ever existed. Okay. Because it will test you. It will test your limits.
Over and over again.
Oh my God, right? You think that you've gone crazy, like you might get door slam, nose, all these kind of things. You might experience super high highs, super low lows. And what it does is it builds that really deep resilience in you, right? And so like I know what it's like to be an entrepreneur from that angle, not just from the healthcare angle, but from the angle of actually like freaking up all night.
Like, are we going to make it? Do we have enough money? Yep.
Totally burning, not getting sleep, burning midnight oil, like waking up early to like fires you have to put out, like all these things.
Unable to fall asleep because your head's spinning with all the ideas, right?
Totally. So in my chiropractic journey, so, building up Cup of Sugar up in the San Francisco Bay Area, connecting with different property managers, because our target market is more isolated, hyper-local communities like apartment complexes. While we're in this, super startup phase right now, is we don't, because it has to have that network effect, right? Like an app like this is not something that it could just like Pam download in Pennsylvania and me have in California, because ideally, or like, unfortunately, I'm not going to be coming to pick up sugar from you.
I say we get a portal is what we'd have to use to get it through.
Right.
Yep.
So it was like a lot of like, I was cold calling property managers and then going in and taking like an exam for chiropractic school and doing all of these things and taking my licensing boards. And so it's okay to say this for me, but like I had a social life in chiropractic school, but I wasn't like needing to be out every weekend with everybody and like, let me go for a drink. And then like, because like you guys know, entrepreneurs, and we're kind of like in this lane, right? We're kind of focused, and it's like we still have our friendships, but we're very
focused,
mindful, focused, and we kind of keep these walls around our time, right? Because it's like it can get all haywire, and you have to have those boundaries. And so, anyways, so so then I graduated. I moved back to San Diego, literally December of 2019. Within 2 months, it was like shut down, close everything up. Like no apartment complex is doing community events at all. Before, we were going in doing all kinds of community events, bringing the residents out, being there, showing them how the app works, all that kind of stuff.
2020 timing.
Oh my gosh, right? And so, but through the process, so through all of that, 2019, I graduated. I went to work for not the mentor doc that got me to go into chiropractic school, but another doc that I met during that whole time process. So back in 2016 that I started to see, he does a lot of functional medicine, a lot of functional. His gift is he has developed and perfected this technique that is his own personal one that he is actually mentoring me in. And essentially it's a technique of chiropractic that encompasses the entire body. It's not coming to the office 3 times a week, let us, palpate your spine and then adjust, neck, whatever, but really understanding, hey, like, is your liver getting affected by some sort of other like heavy metal toxicity in your body, and is that why X bone is getting thrown out? And really looking at it as, hey, Pam may really need an adjustment, but is going after that adjustment first the best case scenario? And what is Pam's body really wanting first? So he's developed, like, it's called hand moding, and there's different, like you go into different modes with your hand. And we use the muscles when the patient's laying on the table. We use the muscles to kind of test, like, okay, use it as a lever system to see what is happening. So if I am testing and I isolate Pam's liver and her muscle goes completely weak, there's some sort of stress there that we have to determine what is happening. And so it's looking at speaking to the language of your body versus speaking body language. Body language is like,
love it. Yep.
She's angry. Like, that's body language. But people don't understand that the body carries with it its very own language. And so I am so passionate about building up, like standing for these purpose-driven entrepreneurs who are making a massive impact in the world, but they're so narrowly focused and doing such great work in the world that they forget about themselves. And I want to get them well, so they're physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, like, so strong that they can continue to build their business, outperform, outwork their competition, energy, focus, everything, and that they live long lives. Because, Steve Jobs, unfortunately, didn't live a long life. He made massive impact in the world, but what could have Apple been? I mean, I know that they have somebody else up front and they're moving and shaking, but what could it have been had he still been here?
And what could his life have been had he still been here? Would there be something beyond Apple for him? And yeah, that's such a good point. And the interesting thing is, as I've gotten older, I figured out that all this stuff is connected. I never, for whatever reason, did that before. I mean, we had a fascinating conversation about vitamin K the other day. Yeah. And it really is all connected. And it's more, this is what I like about what you do. And I have a follow-up question that I really hope will get a couple of tips out to people, because if I am going to go to a chiropractor, what are the things, I know that you can do some stuff virtually, which will let people know how to get in touch with you and that kind of thing. But if I'm going to physically go to a chiropractor in my area, what are the things I should be looking out for? How do I know I'm going to the right one? There's a bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for? A stigma around chiropractic. How do I separate, just like with accountants, there are too, and CFOs, they're the ones that are just shortchanging people, and then there are really good ones. How do I find the right one? What questions do I ask?
Well, I think it goes back to, if you're looking for chiropractors and you're calling into the office and it seems like they're not even acknowledging questions, that they're just kind of trying to, okay, let's get you through here, and not really hey, I have this and this going on. And if they are genuine, you can kind of feel their energy and that kind of stuff, then that could be a great one. I can provide a link too. I'll pull it up and then I can share it in the comments for different functional neurology type practices. But then
love it.
That one of the things we're working on this year is I told Doc, because he's looking to retire and I'm going to be basically the one grabbing the torch and taking it on, is that we're going to be training other doctors across the nation to do this kind of work, so that we do have a referral network. So people in Pennsylvania, we know we've vetted this person. We know exactly that they do this kind of work as well, that they're going to be able to help you holistically and not just crack. Because there is validity in chiropractic, but I'm going to kill chiropractic sacred cows right now. And I know people are going to other chiropractors are going to hate me, but going 3 times a week, I understand the concept is what they're trying to do is recreate patterns. So, you have a certain posture or whatever, shoulder down, whatever. And so 3 times a week, we're going to help your brain remember that it needs to bring this shoulder up, and so it's causing repatterning in the brain. But the thing is there's other things that are affecting why the spine is going out. And you can't just keep pop without addressing organ issues, muscle issues, chemical imbalances, hormonal imbalances. You've got to address the issues. Yes. Yeah.
So really it's the whys. It's the why all the way down, like a 5-year-old almost, to say, let's get to what's really driving this thing. I love that.
Yes.
I also love the fact that you're going to start potentially spreading this word further and further, because I've known of people who have done 1 or 2 of these things, but not people that combine everything. Because you also, and I guess as somebody says, that our message is in our mess, right?
Yes.
Or our mess becomes our message. And
your mess is your message.
Yeah, you learned also about the spiritual things you needed to adjust and change, and yet still somehow was integrated with those foundational religious education that you'd had. And you figured out that there's the physical and there's the mental and there's the mindset, and you've combined it all into this practice, which is what I've been so fascinated with and talking about with you. So so I'm a sedentary entrepreneur. I am behind this computer 20, that's not true, 20 is a stretch, 8 to Deb would tell you it's 20. I'd say it's, solid 8 to 12 hours potentially a day,
Yeah.
probably 7 days a week. Because even when I'm watching TV or something, I'm behind it. What
Yeah.
are some practical things I can do to just help my overall physical wellness when that's the situation I'm in?
Well, one, I would say so if you're sitting a lot, ideally you should get up after every 20 minutes and maybe even like walk around 1 to 2 minutes just to kind of, again, like allow those joints to get lubricated.
Love it.
And just kind of, your hip flexors from sitting will get really, really tight. I wish I had like a video. Maybe I can post a link to a video of a good hip flexor stretch. The
Oh,
way you
cool.
kind of like stretch those hip flexors out. If you're watching TV, you can do it during like a commercial break, or just kind of have we have those little timers in our phone. We can set,
It's
okay,
like a
time to
Pomodoro timer. My best focus happens anyway when I'm working 25-minute blocks with a 5-minute break. So
there
I
you go.
time it in the 5-minute break instead of using it to do something on the computer. I love that.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah. No, so that's one of them. And then the other thing too is we are so inundated with blue light with computers. I don't have them on right now, but it's perfect. Yay. So getting some of these can help really, really relieve a lot of eye strain, and they can relieve like if you're getting headaches. I posted on my TikTok, blue light glasses. Yes. I've posted on my TikTok some different reflex points that people can do at home when they have a headache. So I'll put a link to that there in the video that people can
have so many fun links in the comments here.
I know, but there's so many. The thing is, and this is what I want to say, as entrepreneurs, like we are so driven, we're so focused that we get overwhelmed with things that are like, somebody says you need to eat healthy. It's like, okay, I have a business to run. I don't like, healthy to me means I have to sit there for 6 hours, meal prepping for a week, doing all this kind of stuff. Like, I'm just going to run to 7-Eleven, grab my cup of coffee, grab my pastry, and get to the office. I mean, pre-COVID, right?
I recognize that person a little bit.
Yeah. And we do these things that we're just kind of like not really aware of. But the thing is like, health doesn't have to be 3 hours in the gym, 6 hours meal prepping, all of that. Like, even just like one of the things that I've done, and it's been really successful for me, is really bookending our days. So you have a morning routine, and you hear all these millionaire morning routines, and I do this and I do that. And it's like, 10 hours later, it's like by noon, you're starting your day, and you're like, right. I don't have till noon to do all these things, but it's a matter of like, okay, like I'm going to start with the evening part, the evening wind down, because it's going to kind of play into the morning. But I have an evening wind down, maybe 20 minutes, where I check, like I create these power lists, 5 things each day that I want to accomplish. These are 5 things that are going to move my business, my brand, my practice forward. What are these 5 things?
For the next day, right?
For the next day.
Okay.
Then I look at the list for the day that I'm in currently, and I see, okay, what did I miss? Why did I miss that? Was I too much in my head? Like, whatever, and I just like make notes. I use my phone. Like, I put all of them in my phone.
Oh, cool.
And it just like, it's such
a software app, just boom.
Just in the notes section of my phone. And so then I do that evening wind down, and then, I kind of just like put my phone on airplane mode, and I get to sleep, because honestly, sleep is one of those things that entrepreneurs will run so far away from, not realizing that they need more of it in order to be able to focus and have energy. Because once you have a really good night's sleep, you are so much better focused. And so
you get 10 times more out of an hour than you do. So you actually get 10 hours out of an hour instead of the 3 that you tried to get by not sleeping.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's one of okay, so the evening wind down. And then so when I wake up in the morning, like it's just 30 minutes. Like my morning routine is like 30 minutes. Like I wake up, I do like a 5 to 10-minute meditation. I'll do like 10 minutes of exercise. And that could be in the form of just walking, yoga, stretching, like whatever, just something to like get your body
Move your
moving,
body.
right?
Yep.
It's been sleeping. So these are really small practices that can really go a long way to kind of help your day, like get you going. And again, it doesn't have to be, health is not something where you have to be in the gym for 3 hours and doing all these kind of things. Like simple practices, very, very simple
Health
practices.
can be simple.
Like there's, all kinds of healthy foods, like, that are like in the frozen section. If there is a convenience factor that you need, that you can kind of just heat up, or making a quick, like hard-boiled egg, give yourself some protein in the morning, like super quick, easy, like.
I love this. I'll tell you, the interesting thing is, like, I've got this morning routine, which I like, but if I do everything, it's 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so I get up at 6 and I start, and it's great and I love it and I feel good, but I haven't, because it's the thing I most avoid, figured out how to work an exercise segment into it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What's the most important thing? Get your body moving after a good night's sleep. So you've actually inspired me here too. I'm going to do a little experiment over the next 2 weeks, so 14 days. And instead of my 2-hour extravaganza, I'm going to do 10 minutes of meditation instead of 25, and 10 minutes of some sort of walking, some sort of exercise, walk, stretch, yoga, whatever it is. And then 10 minutes I'll use to pick one of the other things I like to do and slot it in there. And I'm going to do that for 2 weeks. And I'm going to report back here how that goes.
Love it.
And I think I may have overcomplicated things. And I'm also going to hard boil some eggs. That all of a sudden I wanted a hard boiled egg the minute you said that.
So good, right?
Oh, those are great. I'll recapture those guys, folks, in the comments with kind of a list of Brooke's evening wind down, morning routine. And I just love the simplicity. Okay, so my friend Trish.
Oh, wash your face.
My friend Trish I met her because our daughters are the same age, about, I think now, 13 years ago. And when her youngest was a baby, I'll tell you that story sometime because it's hysterical. But she's also my Mary Kay person and my personal health, wellness. And I told her, I said, I just can't wash my face before I go to bed every night. I don't have it in me. By the time I get there, it's just like, no, I'm not doing it. So every time she sees me, she yells at me to wash my face.
Pam, we are soul sisters in that. I'm like, I get my daughter going, Mom, you need to wash your face. I'm like, okay, yes, you're right.
Well, now you're in trouble because Trish knows where to find you, and you're going to start doing the same thing.
Oh my God.
I love it. Well, this has been a blast. I'm going to drop a bunch of stuff in the comments, folks, whether you're seeing this live or on replay. Brooke's going to drop a bunch of useful stuff in the comments, and I will go ahead and tag the folks who've been in here to make sure they circle back to see it, because I love this conversation. I can't thank you enough for taking the time out to share this stuff with people. Your story is amazing. It's inspiring. I am 1000% behind you as you move forward into, number one, taking the not-for-profit along. I'm here to do anything you need to help with that. And then I can't wait to see what you do with this chiropractic practice.
Thank you.
No more number 2 for you.
Huh?
No more number 2 for you.
I know.
Yep. You are ready, and you've got a fantastic light to shine. I am so excited to watch it happen.
Thank you. Oh, appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks a lot, everybody. We will see you again next week with some Facebook Lives. Brooke, thank you again. We are checking out. Have a great Friday, everybody.
Bye.